Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today's episode is a follow-up to the Monta Oceanking review. The initial video was just kind of an unboxing and initial impressions. This would be the full review. So a little bit about the brand. Monta was founded back in 2015. They are headquartered out of the US, although their watches are Swiss made. They're a micro brand startup with their eye on the entry-level luxury market slash kind of mid-tier. So that's actually a pretty interesting and competitive space right now. We'll touch more on that during the review. But a little bit about the type of watch. Of course, this is a dive watch. Some key common characteristics and design language you're going to see in a dive watch. What you want to look for is, of course, water resistance, normally through a screw down crown, something tough, legible, you know, a dive time bezel. And if it's on a bracelet, a diver's extension is also always nice too. So this particular piece is the Oceanking, and this is the version in black. There's also a blue model available. The retail price on this, which is pretty cool because you can buy these direct now. Monta did recently have a change in their pricing model. So now you can buy direct from Monta, and you can have one of these as spec'd here on the bracelet for $23.50, which I think is a really great price. And if you're not into bracelets, you can actually get it on an outstanding rubber right under $2,000 at $19.95. So I think that's definitely a pretty big value, and some of you might be looking at this very stark dive watch and think to yourself, you know, how can this be such a high value at that price range? And I will definitely explain to you as we go through this review. So let's go ahead and zoom out and get this piece in hand and just start taking a closer look at some of the fine details that really make this watch something special. So the case size is probably one of the biggest factors for me that gives this watch a real you know, a lead when it comes to the competition out there. This is the classic 40mm diameter. So at 40mm, it's really just the perfect size for so many wrists. I think that's really the sweet spot for a lot, you know, a lot of pieces that are out there, especially when you know, add to the fact that there's a dive bezel on it, and then of course the crown with no crown guards. It's just a really classic look. And of course the black and steel look is never going to go out of style. So really just proportions wise, this is what's going to set it apart from something like, let's say, an Oris Aquis or even a Christopher Ward Trident C60. This is just that perfect sweet spot. It hasn't been upsized just for the market. You know, even when you would set this next to something like, let's say, a Tudor Heritage Black Bay or a Pelagos, those watches are, you know, although only a few millimeters larger, they definitely are gonna be noticeably larger on wrist, and this is something that this excels in. You know, the Oceanking just kind of has those magic proportions that just hit all the right notes. So the height is 14mm, so it's not too thick, but it does have that nice double dome crystal there, so you can see it actually has a very flat case back. So they, you know, the shape of the watch, I guess, similar to that of the Black Bay, is they went for more of the side kind of slab case versus making a thinner mid case and then having a case back that protrudes. Everything is kind of you know, more singular in that, and I think it looks really, really nice. By no means do I think the proportions are off. I think this is really nice, and then you see the thickness of the bezel, which not only looks great, you know, functional wise, but it also just has really nice proportions that I enjoy. And then of course you look at the bracelet, and something I mentioned in the initial impressions is one of the things that impresses me most about this bracelet is that it is very light and it's thin, but it still oozes quality. Now that's something that's hard to do. It's very easy for a manufacturer to come in and overbuild a piece and kind of give you a false sense of quality. I mean, there's tons of micro brands out there that'll put out a watch that has 500 meters water resistance, and you know, give it all the specs, you know, give it ceramic, give it sapphire, give it an automatic movement with hacking and hand winding, but they're not finished to this level. And I challenge any of those companies that are out there putting out those pieces to make something this thin and light and still have it feel like quality. And that's definitely something just to kind of be in awe of, that they can actually get that done at this price point, which is pretty amazing. So again, to touch on the crystal, it is a sapphire double dome with inner AR coating, about 7 layers in there, and it works magically. As you can see, even under these harsh studio lights, it's really handling the reflections well. Of course, if it's reflecting the light directly, there's nothing that's gonna really help there, but you can kind of see it kind of playing off of that there. You get an idea of how this would handle sunlight and natural light as well, by kind of seeing how it diffuses the light there. So really nice. And when you look at it, you know, you definitely have that feeling of where you can reach in and touch that dial, because you can, as you can see right here at this angle, that crystal just disappears. And because it has the double dome, the clarity is really nice. Even at harsher viewing angles, as you can see, the dial is still very, very legible. Very nice touch and well executed. Now, the bezel is actually 60 clicks, and it is an amazing 60 click bezel. I mean, there's no play in this at all. I mean, there's just on its way to the click, and there's that's it. So, I mean, I know a lot of people are probably thinking, oh, why is this 6 click bezel? It should be 120 clicks. You know, again, this is something that really, to me, is a highlight for Monta, that they were able to produce a 60 click bezel with action this good. Normally, a 120 click bezel, it's just easier to manufacture and make it feel tight, because essentially you have half the room for play, right? So every one of those clicks, now you cut it in half, and if you had a very loose action on there, then you're making it tighter. So you're basically cutting the play in half. Now, this is something, when you have a 60 click bezel that is this tight and this good, oh man, it's just something so special that you just don't see and you don't feel. I mean, this is, I know, you know, a lot of dive watch lovers, the bezel action is huge when it comes to kind of that feeling of security and, you know, and build quality. That's kind of one of the little tests that you do. You know, you walk around a car, you kick the tires. It's one of those things. You pick up a dive watch and you just ratchet that bezel. And this 60 click bezel is just perfect. Really, really nicely done. So, again, 60 click bezel versus 120 click. It's not like one is necessarily better than the other. You know, of course, how many people are really going to time off of half a click and just audible feeling alone? Most people are going to visually reference anyway. But the point being is that, you know, 120 click bezel action is definitely going to be easier to manufacture as far as giving it that kind of tighter quality feel, because there's just less room for, so, you know, the tolerances are just going to be tighter in general. So there's a little bit less room for play. So that the fact that they could have this tight of an action on, you know, on just a 60 click is just amazing. And I can only imagine what this would feel like with 120 clicks. But honestly, I think it's completely awesome the way it is, and I'm still very, very impressed. So the crown is signed and does have of course, is screw down, because this is a dive watch, and it does have really nice grip action to it. I think aesthetically it's really nice, and it kind of mirrors how the shape of the bezel here, as you can see. It's almost like a little, you know, or I should say large crown. It has that nice crown shape, and then the crown itself is even crown shaped, which is really cool. So makes it easier to grasp, and it's also smooth. So when you are, you know, of course it has the contours so you can grip it, but it's not something that's going to eat up your hand when you're setting it or winding it or anything like that, which is definitely nice. So the movement inside here is a pretty rare movement that you really don't see used too often. It is the Eterna caliber 3909 Alpha, so the 3909A. It's a 29 joule Swiss manufactured movement, and it has a 4 hertz sweep, a 65-hour power reserve. It's chronometer tuned, right there to be within those -4 +6 seconds a day standard. And you know, for me in actual timing, this thing is probably bang on in a day, and I haven't seen it actually lose any seconds within a day. Maybe within 2 or 3 days I'll see it gain about 1 second. So it's been extremely accurate, although this is in-house tuned and adjusted basically, versus, you know, being sent out for COSC certifications. Still definitely very nice that it's regulated, and it's regulated really, really well. So the case back is solid and engraved. Very standard affair there. Nicely executed, definitely. But it's, you know, it has that very classic clean look, and that's something that's a theme throughout this watch. Now, as far as the hands go, as you can see, really classic sword hands, but they didn't just, you know, pull the silhouette off of, you know, a vintage Seamaster or Rolex Mill Sub. These are actually original sword hands, you know, that have been designed. And as you can see, one of the bigger standouts is just the kind of general shape on the second's hand there. The way the second hand is a little bit smaller on the tip, and then you have, you know, those really nice, highly polished rhodium plated hands there, and you can see they're actually contoured, so they do have a nice fold to them. And then even the shape of the lume that's inside of there is just something special. Just so many attention, just such great attention to detail, so many fine little things you find while looking at this watch. And although it is, again, it's a very simple design, it's just so clean and so well executed. You know, you really can't ask for more. It's not super busy, but it's, to me, it's not super plain. It uses the space on the dial really, really well, and I think the proportions of the dial to the bezel, to the case, to the bracelet are all just really, really nicely done, and just really hits those sweet spots, I think, for a lot of wrists out there. So the date, as you can see, is right there at 6 o'clock. It has a black date disc, which is really nice, and a beautiful frame around it. Looks really, really great. And then, you know, it uses BGW9 Lume. It has applied a mixture of applied and painted indices there, which is controversial, I think, maybe to some. But I think it definitely adds to the originality and the charm. It's one of those funny things, right? Anytime a homage watch comes out, or a watch that just borrows a lot of different elements from other watches, everyone complains. They wish, oh, why couldn't they come up with something original? You know, I wish I could get that quality, and I really like the price point, but if they could just make it original. Here you have something that is very, very original, right? While still really having a very classic aesthetic that I think crosses over, and is just really a pleasure to view, to wear, to be around. I mean, this thing is just pure class. To coin a phrase from TGV, a very popular YouTuber who does watch videos as well. So the water resistance on here is 304 meters, or 1,000 feet. The bracelet is it has a 20 millimeter lug width, which is really nice, and also, of course, very classic. And then it has a bracelet that tapers down from 20 millimeters down to 18. Comes to this nice solid clasp, and it has that flip lock style. Really nice. And then even the way it secures here, you know, with the ring there and the little puck, the way, I mean, and this is a finely engineered piece. They didn't just take a bunch of parts from a parts bin. This has been engineered and designed. And then again, you know, this is not a stamped piece. Although it is very thin and very light, this is a nice milled out piece, and man, it is just gorgeously milled out. And as you can also see, all these micro bevels all along every little contour there, and then you even have the articulated 3-link there versus kind of when they're just 3 links pushed together and bonded to make 1 link. You get this little extra articulation here, which definitely adds to the really just feeling of luxury on the wrist and comfort. And then another thing is, again, it's just a little bit more original, which is great. And then I think really where you're gonna feel the difference is when you're taking the watch on and off, and you're able to have that little extra articulation to get your hand in and out, and you can kind of move it and bend it. Or when you lay it down, you know, it lays much nicer because of the articulated links there, which is really nice. And another great touch. I mean, this does come also on a rubber strap, which is really nice. It's probably one of the better rubber straps that are out there. Of course, Everest brand straps. You know, that's kind of the origin story of Monta. And you know, people are willing to pay a lot of money for those straps, and they come standard on here, which is really nice. But this bracelet is so nice. Honestly, I haven't put it on the rubber because I think the bracelet is just such a huge selling point for me and just looks absolutely fantastic. So let's go ahead and get this on the wrist and talk about how it wears. Okay, get my glove off here. So just for reference, I do have a 7 1/4 inch wrist. So behold those magic proportions there of the 40 millimeter diver. I mean, this thing just wears so nice. It definitely has, it's a more modern look to it and proportion and execution, but the design cues just tie back to so many vintage references and that really minimal aesthetic from kind of the earlier days of dive watches. And I think that's just something that's fantastic. You know, it really has that tool watch design, but then executed to just this high, you know, luxury level. You know, those micro bevels on the outer edge, the bevels on the inner edge of the lugs. I mean, this thing is just so finely finished. You might not know what a Monta is, but when you come across something like this, you walk into a watch boutique, people know that this is absolute quality. And as you can see, that chapter ring, you know, another original choice there versus having, you know, brushed or polished, Rehalt. They definitely went with a little bit more of a modern look there. With the angular chapter ring, which just adds a little extra dimension to the dial there, and I think it's just it's very cohesive. The way that the ceramic insert meets the dial, I think visually is just very nice. Now, this isn't the perfect diver by any means. There are still a couple little things you know, that I might wish were different. One is, you know, there's no lume on the insert here. So normally you should have either a loomed bezel pip or at the 12, or, you know, maybe even loomed markers all the way around. That is actually something I discussed with Monta, and the good news is that they're coming out. They're still actually developing ceramic inserts that will be loomed, which is really nice. They initially, while putting this together, they didn't like the quality that they found in some of the test pieces, so they moved forward. They made the conscious decision, let's do it without the lume. I mean, let's be honest, there's Panerais that are clearly divers that don't even have a dive bezel. So, you know, for somebody to try to argue that without a lumed bezel pip, somehow this is just not an authentic dive watch is just a little bit silly. So, I mean, it'd be nice if it had lume, and that's something that's coming, and that will be available also for current owners. So it's not something to where, you know, you're gonna miss out if you buy it now and then the updates come. It's something that, you know, as part of your ownership, you know, buying directly from Monta, you'll be taken care of. Same thing goes for the Clasp. You know, there's no dive extension or quick adjust, but they actually are developing a quick adjust clasp that will also be made available for current owners, as well as, of course, whenever the new releases come out with an updated version. So I thought that was really cool. They actually do have a really great field watch coming out called the Triumph that I'm really looking forward to. I mean, I might even be more excited about that than this piece. I mean, I think this is amazing. Of course, probably as you guys could tell from watching this video, but the Triumph to me hits quite a few sweet spots, so definitely keep an eye on the channel for that. But let's go ahead and do this. Let's get a look at the lume. That's also something that's been a little bit, you know, a little controversial, I'd say, for this piece, because, you know, lume is such a huge part of kind of why people buy divers. And, you know, and this price point, you know, again, there's a lot of micro brands that will make something thick to have the quality, pile on a ton of lume, and, you know, it basically will hit those marks and it'll get a lot of praise and a lot of love. Now, here it's not about what, I think Monta's approach really, they weren't trying to have the most of anything. They were just trying to have the best of everything. They just wanted the finest execution, and versus, you know, having the most, you know, the brightest, deepest diving, you know, biggest, bulkiest, fanciest, and most complex clasp having diver. Instead, they came out with a piece that is just a gorgeous, gorgeous watch. And it's about more so the total package than it is about, you know, kind of being the sum of its parts. It's really about being a watch on its own. So one thing I'm going to try now, a little bit different than I've normally done in the past, is I'm going to go ahead and get it under some low light conditions, because I think that's something that it's nice to see. I think normally, you know, we do these reviews, we show the lume when it's just pitch black. But, you know, to kind of give you an idea what this is going to look like in low light, the beauty here, I mean, this is just gorgeous. Look at that. I mean, as you can see, that's beautiful. I mean, that's just, so well executed, so finely done. And I mean, it's a beauty to wear due to its proportions. You know, it's a beauty to behold due to its design and its execution. And I mean, look at that. That is just a good looking piece. So, guys, I know this has been a controversial piece. A lot of people on my channel don't necessarily want to spend in this price range, and maybe a lot of people that are spending in this price range don't want to watch YouTube videos you know, trying to justify their purchase. But for those of you that are out there that are kind of, you know, kin to kind of the way I see watches, and, you know, it's all about getting that quality and kind of that bang per buck. If you're looking for the highest quality kind of grail diver you can find, where you're not going to be just paying for the brand's marketing or lineage or prestige, you're just paying absolutely for the quality, and of course the quality of ownership, because this is something where you're buying it direct. There's you know, a relationship there, and especially with this being their inaugural watch, I mean, it's just something that it's pretty nice. I think if you go back a couple hundred years, and if you could get a couple people on board with you know, the first, you know, couple of Longines or Rolexes or Omegas that came out. You know, I'm sure it's a very, very special feeling of ownership, and that's something I think that you'll find here with this brand. They've really found a way to kind of just enter in at that really entry-level luxury segment. You know, they just came in and they delivered. They didn't start off with a bunch of homages to pay the bills and then come out with something later on. They just came in, they did the homework, and they made the investment, and they swung for the fences. And to me, you know, it's a definite hit. And that BGW9 Lume just looks fantastic. As you can see, we'll go ahead and hit the lights back on here now. So guys, if you like this video, please do hit like. If you haven't already, do subscribe for more content just like this. Hey, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I know this is probably one where people are gonna have a lot to say about it. You know, what do you think about the use of the Eterna movement? I mean, they probably could have used, yeah, an SW300 or, you know, a 2892, made this a cheaper watch. But I think this movement is really just suits how special this piece is, and you know, to their credit, it's part of that kind of special overall package, you know, that you find. I mean, Eterna, they're the founders of ETA, so I think it's pretty cool that instead of putting just, you know, another ETA movement in there, they put a Eterna in-house movement, and it's a modern one, right? It's something that's new, that has, you know, the extended power reserve, the much tighter tolerances. I mean, even unregulated, these movements are going to be way more accurate. So once they are regulated, I mean, you just have that much more capability. Again, I'm really impressed. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. All right, guys. See you next time.